Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to probably the last International Trade Committee meeting for the House Rises. And before I go on, I'd like to thank our the clerk, our analysts and staff, and all our supporting staff to help us get through this very busy year. And our committee has been very busy. Minister, we've, as you know, we're dealing with the EU and the Pacific Alliance, the ASEAN countries we visited, and Mercosur. But of course, one of the most important studies we did was NAFTA, which had us traveling to the United States a few times. Again, welcome, being here on your busy schedule, and thank you for all the hard work you're doing, and congratulations on your very prestigious award. Thank you very much. We are going to, of course, give you opening comments, and then we're going to have interconnection with the MPs. We're going to try to get 2 rounds in today, so we're going to hope everybody keeps it tight on their time. When we get started with the MPs, I'm going to hit that button when it turns red when you have 30 seconds. I'm going to be very close on my time because I want to get everybody in. But without further ado, again, welcome, Minister, and you have the floor.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you, everyone. It's been a busy year for all of us. And I would like to join Mark in thanking the people who work so hard to make the work of this committee possible. So thanks a lot. And I am joined here by 2 people well known to the committee and to Canadians, Tim Sargent, Deputy Minister for International Trade, and Steve Verheuel, who as people know, I think is our chief NAFTA negotiator. So I'll make some opening remarks and then I'm happy to answer questions. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered on the traditional territory of the Algonquin. And I'm here today to speak about anything people ask me about, but chiefly about the Canada-U.S. trade relationship. It is that part of my set of responsibilities that is of specific interest, I think, to this committee. And I want to start by taking this opportunity to thank Canadians and leaders from across the country for our unified Team Canada approach to this specific issue. I am very humbled and very appreciative of this effort, and I want to specifically recognize Canada's premiers, labour leaders, business leaders, and the members of the NAFTA Council for their tremendous work to date. And I do want to acknowledge the work of members of Parliament from all parties, very much including the members of this committee, mayors, civil society, and frankly, many, many, many Canadians who have been really personally involved in and engaged in this effort. I think there is a broad national recognition that this is a consequential issue for our country. I certainly feel that when I talk to my constituents, or really I should say when my constituents talk to me, and I imagine all of you have the same experience. The Canada-U.S. economic relationship is an essential one, and one of the things which has been so valuable to Canada is the fact that we are playing as a united team. That is essential, and it sends a powerful message to all Canadians and a very powerful message to the United States. Merci, Monsieur le Président, et mes collègues de m'offrir cette occasion.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for this chance to speak to the committee. I will do my best to share the point of view developed by the government on the tariffs on steel and aluminum from Canada imposed by the United States and on the general negotiations in NAFTA. Let me begin by discussing the tariffs. Mr. Chair, Canada is a friend, ally, and neighbor of the United States. We share the longest non-militarized joint area in the world. Our soldiers have fought side by side and died side by side in the First World War, the Second World War, in Korea, Afghanistan, and Iraq. As I have often said, the idea that we might be a threat to the national security of the United States, the pretext under which our neighbours have imposed these tariffs on Canadian exported steel and aluminum is not only absurd.
These 232 tariffs, Mr. Chair, are illegal under WTO and NAFTA rules. In fact, we have initiated a case at the WTO and have raised a case under Chapter 20 of NAFTA. As supporters of the rules-based international order, very much including in trade, it was important for Canada to take this legal action. And I'd like to take this opportunity also to thank the very hardworking and committed and creative Government of Canada trade lawyers who've been working very, very hard on this. Now, Canada has no choice but to retaliate with a measured, perfectly reciprocal, dollar-for-dollar response, and we will do so. On May 31st, the Prime Minister and I announced that Canada intends to impose tariffs on imports of steel and aluminum and other products from the United States, representing the total value of 2017 Canadian exports affected by the U.S. measures. That is $16.6 billion, Mr. Chair, Canada's strongest trade action since the Second World War. Since we made that announcement, we have published two lists. One list that will be subject to a 25% tariff, a second list that will be subject to a 10% tariff. These countermeasures will only apply to goods originating from the United States. They will take effect on July 1 and will remain in place until the United States eliminates its trade restrictive measures against Canada. Consultations on these lists concluded on June 15th. I'd like to make a particular point, Mr. Chair, that in putting together these lists, the government and our fine officials have worked really hard to find lists which have the minimal impact on Canadians. We have sought, where possible, to avoid intermediate goods, and we have sought to put on the list products which can be easily sourced from either Canadian or other non-U.S. suppliers. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the Canadians who have been very actively engaged in the consultations on these lists, including through their members of Parliament. I've heard directly from many MPs, including members of this committee, about feedback you've had from your constituents, from your stakeholders, about what should be on the list. That has been very, very useful. And although the formal consultation period is finished, we are still interested in feedback from Canadians. They should be in touch with the government, with Steve and his team, and with the Department of Finance, and people, of course, can always be directly in touch with me. As we take these steps in response to the 232 tariffs, we act in close collaboration with our like-minded partners in the European Union and Mexico. And it's important to point out that these countries, also subject to the 232 tariffs from June 1st, are also allies of the United States. Mr. Chair and colleagues, we know that no one will benefit from this beggar-thy-neighbor approach to trade. The price will be paid, in part, by American consumers and by American businesses. And I think we all agree that it is important for Canada to stand up in defence of the international rules-based order, and we will do so. Canada's policy will be that we will not escalate and we will not back down. Judging by the feedback I have received in the past few weeks, countless Canadians of all political points of view agree. Very many have come out in support of our decision to defend Canadian workers, and I would like to thank all members of the House of Commons, particularly Tracy Ramsey, for the unanimous consent motion that we all passed supporting this action. I think that was a very strong measure. It was something that I have shared with our counterparts in the United States. I'm glad that we were able to do it. It's a testament to Canadian unity on this issue, and I'd like to thank provincial and territorial leaders, including Premier-designate Ford, Premier Moe, Premier Horgan, as well as the CLC and so many others for their support. One thing that I do want to point out, Mr. Chair, is that this unjustified 232 action by the United States is quite separate from the ongoing negotiations between Canada, the United States, and Mexico to modernize NAFTA. As far as Canada is concerned, these are entirely separate issues, and I'd like to point out that that is also the case under U.S. law, given that 232 is a national security provision. Now, we know that NAFTA is very much the advantage of all three NAFTA countries. When it comes to trade between Canada and the United States, our relationship is balanced and mutually beneficial. In fact, in goods and services overall, the U.S. has a slight trade surplus with Canada. The U.S. also has a surplus in trade in manufactured goods, in trade in agricultural goods, and perhaps particularly relevant today, in trade in steel. And as I know all of us are very well aware, Canada is the largest market for the United States, larger than China, Japan, and the UK combined. A modernized win-win-win deal that benefits all three NAFTA partners is possible, Mr. Chair, and we continue to work hard and patiently to achieve this outcome. That was the point I made last Thursday when I met with Ambassador Lighthizer in Washington, and again when I spoke to him over the telephone yesterday. I also had a constructive conversation with Secretary Mike Pompeo, the U.S. Secretary of State, on Saturday, which included a discussion of NAFTA and the 232 tariffs. I remain convinced that there is goodwill and a desire to move forward on the NAFTA negotiations, and we have heard that publicly as recently as yesterday from Secretary Pompeo. Our government feels that now we can continue working on the NAFTA negotiation. We will be working hard over the summer. So thank you very much, and I'm happy now to answer people's questions.
Well, thank you, Minister. And we're going to now have dialogue with the MPs. I'm going to be very strict. As soon as that light's on red, that means you got 30 seconds. So if you want to get a short one in, you're going to have to be quick, and maybe the Minister can have a quick answer. But without further ado, we're going to start off with the Conservatives. Mr. O'Toole, welcome, member from Durham, and you're going to start sharing your time with Mr. Allison for 5 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, and Minister, thank you for all the hard work on this file. And Mr. Verhult, to you and your team, I know there's been a lot of hours spent over this, and it's not an easy one. I may just respectfully disagree that 232 and NAFTA are linked, certainly from the President's point of view. As a matter of fact, 10 minutes before this committee started, Mr. Trump tweeted out, "Canada is not going to take advantage of the United States anymore." So we've seen these tweets before. They continue to happen, and it seems that everything he tweets ends up actually happening at some point in time. When we chatted last week about tariffs, I was concerned about the Schedule 1 not going into force right away. You said you wanted to consult and try and get the right deal in place. I would say that more than ever, you know, the industry needs certainty. What I want to talk to you about is Schedule 2 today, just briefly. I've heard from a lot of companies. I've got Kingfisher Boats, Whirlpool, JME Strapping, Okanagan Spring Brewery, Steelway Building Systems, GGS Structures, and the list goes on, are really concerned about how Schedule 2 will possibly affect them, make it more expensive, and make it less competitive. And so I think any kind of protracted trade war is not going to go well for Canada, given the size of the United States. So we just, once again, want to comment on Schedule 2 this time. I asked you Schedule 1 last week. We'll talk about Schedule 2 a little bit, and just your thoughts around how you've got to that list and whether you feel you've balanced the businesses versus the trade aspect.
Well, thank you very much for the question. Thank you, Dean. If I may, can we be on first name basis? I'm happy for people to call me by my first name. Thank you for your hard work on this and for working so closely with stakeholders. As I said, the formal consultation period closed on June 15th, and we are now taking in all of the very detailed extensive feedback we've had from stakeholders. We will be using that feedback to modify the list. That is why the consultation period is so essential. It is a period that we use to hear directly from affected stakeholders and to get the best possible list for Canadians. Like you, I have heard from people in the boating sector, and that is feedback that we are taking very seriously. And I do just want to reiterate, just so I know it's clear to you, but so it's clear to Canadians, what we published on May 31st was a preliminary set of lists. The consultation period is real and meaningful. It has been important for us to hear from Canadians about what they want to see on the list and what they don't want to see on the list. And Steve and the team and I and our colleagues in the Department of Finance are now working very hard to integrate that feedback from stakeholders and to modify the lists accordingly.
Thank you. I'll turn the rest of my time over to Mr. O'Toole.
Mr. O'Toole, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. Last July, when President Trump alluded to the use of 232, specifically tweeting about dumping of steel and aluminum, it was considered at that time that he was focused at China. But Canada did not change our country of origin marking with respect to these dumping concerns until May of 2018, so a full year later. And when Mr. Hoback and I were in Washington in February, we were bringing up steel and aluminum tariffs with many officials for the first time, is what they said. So when did Canada start reacting to the threat posed by 232 and the overall administration concerns about steel from outside North America?
Canada began our conversation with the United States about Section 232 on steel and aluminum as soon as this issue was raised in the United States. It was an issue that was raised by Secretary Ross. It was a Department of Commerce investigation, and I had many conversations with him beginning as soon as this investigation was launched last spring. The Prime Minister discussed this directly. No, I haven't finished my answer.
Why no action until May 2018?
I haven't finished my answer, though, if I may. The Prime Minister discussed this directly with the President of the United States. I was present at that discussion at the G7 summit at Taormina in Italy. That was in June of 2017. So I want to be very clear, and there were many subsequent conversations. So I want to be clear with Canadians that this issue has been raised by our government at the highest levels. It was also an issue which I raised with Secretary Tillerson and with Ambassador Lighthizer, and it was raised by many other ministers and MPs. In terms of the global safeguards,
why so long until the move on the market?
the global safeguards,
Excuse me.
I can't say about safeguards?
No.
Okay,
no.
I'll do that with somebody else.
I remind MPs, don't be throwing questions in there in the last 10 seconds, but we're going to move on. And we have the Liberals. Madame Lapointe, you got the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to the team. Welcome to you, Honourable Minister. In your introductory remarks, you mentioned business and union leaders, prime ministers of the various provinces who have helped you. I would like you to update us on the way you have worked with the government of Quebec in particular, but also with unions, Quebec businesses, to go over their concerns about the negotiation. How has Quebec been involved in the NAFTA negotiation? Thank you very much, Linda, for this question and for your work, for your considerable work. As I said at the outset, we work closely with each and every province, including, of course, the province of Quebec. Steve and his team have worked closely with officials in Quebec. I work closely with Minister Saint-Pierre and Langlade, as well as indirectly with Premier Couillard. The province of Quebec is well represented and very effectively represented within the United States. So it has been a pleasure and also of the highest importance to work with Quebec. We've also worked with the unions and the various sectors of Quebec, including the forestry sector, aerospace sector, and aluminum sector. As you're fully aware, the economic ties between the province of Quebec and the United States are very strong, are considerable, and it's been extremely useful for us at the federal level to work closely with all the provinces, including Quebec. Thank you very much. On another topic, There are a number of issues, of course, within the NAFTA renegotiation. Some are more controversial than others. You've already spoken of technical NAFTA issues, even though that's not always as interesting to hear about. Those chapters count a lot for businesses doing cross-border trade with various linked supply chains. Could you tell us more about it? Good question, Linda, and I can see that this is something of interest to you as well as to us. It's an important topic for us. These chapters are the modernization chapters. That's how we refer to them. And as you've said, quite correct, they're not always as interesting. They don't always catch the interest of the journalists, but they're very important for any businesses doing cross-border trade. During our consultations, from the very outset of the negotiations, those are the issues. The real trade issues that have counted most for businesses and for workers with whom we've spoken. I can tell you that we've made good progress on those issues. And that's one of the reasons that I remain optimistic about the NAFTA renegotiation. I think it's well worth pointing out that NAFTA is a good agreement. However, it's an agreement that was first set up about 25 years ago. This is an important chance to modernize it, to ensure that NAFTA is a 21st century agreement. That's what we're up to. There's very good cooperation across all three countries to carry out the modernization work, the modernization chapters. Thank you. So you were speaking mostly of non-tariff standards, is that right? Or standards not directly related to tariffs? Yes, indeed. Perhaps I could give you a few more details.
Okay. À ce jour, les négociateurs.
Yes, negotiators have finished negotiating 9 chapters on tariff barriers, on regulatory practices, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, publication and administration, small and medium-sized businesses, anti-corruption, and competition policies, among others.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister, for your words today. I really would like to thank yourself and all of the colleagues on the committee for supporting the motion this week. I think it was really important for us to stand united for Canadians to see where we are at in terms of Canadians. So my first question is going to focus on the immediate concern of workers in the steel and aluminum sector who find themselves, and I have to agree with my colleague, I believe that we should have done the retaliatory tariffs immediately on the steel and aluminum, and now we've put some workers in precarious positions. So my question, I know that you've had USW, Unifor that have called for supports for workers in those sectors. So my question is simply, what is the government doing and what will they offer to these affected workers?
So again, let me say thank you for the work we did together on the unanimous consent motion, and thank you for taking such a leading role there. I agree with you that it is very important for our steel and aluminum workers to know that they have the full support not only of parliamentarians, which I know they have, but also of the Government of Canada. We are currently, and I, in consultation with my colleagues Navdeep Bains and Bill Morneau, are working on ways to support those workers and those industries. And I would like to say to this committee and to all Canadians that we absolutely believe those workers, those industries need our support. I want to point out that the imposition of the retaliatory tariffs is one part of that support. It is not fair that given that Canadian workers, Canadian companies now face tariffs selling their steel and aluminum to the United States, their U.S. competitors should face parallel tariffs selling into Canada. and they will. And the actions that we're taking at the WTO and NAFTA are an important part of the defense. But I agree, we need to work on ways to directly support workers in industry, and that work is underway. I would be very interested in ideas you have on the best way to do that.
Of course, and I hope that those conversations will include the labor organizations and the workers themselves and what it is that they're calling for. My second question to you really is, as a former auto worker of 20 years and certainly an important sector down in my riding of Essex, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the looming potential tariffs of a 232 decision on auto. TD Economics put out a report yesterday saying that 1 in 5 jobs could be lost as a result of the tariffs, and we're talking 160,000 potential jobs lost. It's been said that this will permanently reduce our long-term economic capacity as a country if this sector is decimated. So my question to you is, what moves are we making to support auto workers, but also towards a comprehensive auto strategy that isn't just about a pool of money, but also a strategy across the board in our own country to combat the threat of these tariffs?
Okay, another really good question. And just at the end, you said you hope that anything that we're doing on the steel and aluminum industries includes talking to workers, talking to unions. I agree, that is absolutely necessary, and that is something we are doing, and I'm committed to continuing to do. When it comes to the car sector, and the investigation which Commerce has begun on Section 232 tariffs on autos, this is frankly even more absurd than the notion that Canadian steel and aluminum would pose a national security threat. I have raised the issue with Secretaries Ross and Pompeo and also with Ambassador Lighthizer. We have made clear the Canadian view, and the Prime Minister has raised the issue directly with the President. We believe, as has been our motto since the beginning of the NAFTA negotiations, that we need to hope for the best and work for the best possible outcome, but always be prepared for every eventuality. As you heard in the House of Commons yesterday from my colleague Navdeep Bains, that very much includes a comprehensive strategy of working with supporting our automotive sector. And I would also point out that just as we have worked closely with our allies in a response to 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum, this is an issue which we are discussing with our allies, including the European Union, Japan, and Mexico. And in terms of support for industries and the impact of tariffs, it is worth thinking for a moment about our forestry sector, another sector that has been affected by U.S. tariffs. The Government of Canada, I think with support of all parliamentarians, has stepped up to support those industries. And I'd like to point out,
Sorry, Minister, time is up. Maybe you can get
as I have in the United States, that the price of the tariffs has been passed on to U.S. consumers. That's an important point to make.
Thank you, and we're going to move right over to the Liberals again. Mr. Dhaliwal, you get the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, Deputy Minister, and Chief Negotiator, welcome, and thank you for the great work that you are doing. Minister mentioned that Canada-U.S. relationships is very valuable, and these tariffs are insulting. Not only you feel that way, in fact, both Canadians and American producers, workers, including companies like LMS, Reinforcing Steel Group, and Vargel Steel Supply Limited in my riding, they feel the same way, and they are concerned about the U.S. decision to impose these tariffs on steel and aluminium. And I know that government said that they will be ready, and I heard from my constituents in Surrey Newton, and they and I myself are very proud to see that Prime Minister and Minister U.S. Health were able to immediately announce retaliatory measures, on May 31st, and the consultation period, you said that ended on June the 15th, to hear the views from the stakeholders and about these strong measures. I'm certain, my constituents as well as myself is interested to see if you would be able to share more on these consultations that closed and update, with the industry stakeholders. And of course, the workers.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the question, Sukh, and thank you for your hard work on trade in general and also on this issue, which I know is extremely relevant for your own constituents, for your own riding. And I think it is really important for Canadian steel and aluminum workers to see their MPs stepping up and playing such a strong role. When it comes to the lists and the consultation, the first point, which does bear emphasis, is work on these lists was going on very intensively far ahead of May 31st. And I would like again to thank Steve Verheuel and his team, the Department of Finance. The fact that we were able to come out immediately on May 31st is due to preparation done by very, very many people. And I think that was a strong action on the part of Canada, and I'm glad we were in a position to do it. Now, the consultation period has also been very valuable and important, and I'd like to thank all Canadians who've provided feedback. It is led by the Department of Finance, which is directly responsible for this particular area. We've received a total of 1,108 submissions. We've received them from industry associations, from large corporations, from small and medium-sized enterprises, from provinces, from private citizens, from workers. We are currently hard at work looking at the list, talking to people who made submissions, working on refining the final lists. And I think that it is really important for us to get those lists right, and that is what we are committed to doing. And I do welcome, I've heard from members of this committee directly, but I welcome continued feedback from members of the committee, from all MPs, from all Canadian stakeholders. The formal consultation period came to an end on June 15, but we are ready to continue hearing from people. It is really important for us to get this right, and that's what we're committed to doing.
Thank you. And also, Minister, you know that the committee has extensively traveled to U.S. and I'm sure the members on all sides agree that there has been a lot of protectionist rhetoric around U.S. administration about steel and aluminum tariffs. But ultimately, these tariffs not only going to hurt Canadians, but also going to hurt the American economy as well. As you said, that America is in surplus. Would you be able to elaborate what kind of long-term economic effects it will have on U.S.?
Another great question. Thank you, Sukh. So Canada is a trading nation. We believe in trade, and we know that trade is a win-win relationship, that both partners benefit when trade happens. When we talk about the Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum, we make the point about the national security justification being both illegal and absurd, because those are the grounds on which these tariffs are being levied. And it's really important to remind people of that. Facts matter, the law matters, and so that's why that is where we start. Having said that, okay.
All right. That ends the first round, and before we start the second round, I got two short questions for you, Minister.
Okay.
And in Nova Scotia, we have a huge tire manufacturer, Michelin, and they produce tires for cars, trucks, and various things. So my two quick questions, I guess, is one, when they talk about automobiles, is this just cars and trucks, not big trucks, right? And I guess my second question is, when they talk content, is that the whole vehicle, including the tires, the whole package, I guess?
Again, I think it's important for us to be clear that when it comes to the Section 232 investigation of cars, these are early days. We are at the beginning of the process. And while we need to be prepared for every eventuality, it's important for us also to realize where we are in the process. Having said that, the investigation as currently framed is on light vehicles, so that's cars and trucks, and it does concern all parts that are in a vehicle.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to the second round, and we have Mr. Hogue. Welcome to our committee. You're from South Surrey, White Rock. Wonderful place. I visited there a few months ago. Stay there for a while. Go ahead, Mr. Hogue. You got the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. I'm so old that when NAFTA was originally negotiated, I was a mayor of a border community, and I remember some of the angst and animosity that grew out of that. Subsequently, I was a member of the Legislative Assembly and a cabinet minister and represented the province of British Columbia in the Pacific Northwest Economic Region. So having a fair amount of experience with a number of these things and trying to juxtapose what happened 25 years ago with what's happened today, I've been quite encouraged by the way that Canadians have come together, with different political parties have come together and have addressed this. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, I guess, that Suk was asking, but some of the engagement processes that have taken place. I think often the way we do what we do is often as important as what we do, in some cases more important. So if you could describe for me a little bit about the processes that were engaged in terms of addressing that in a sensitive way that seems to have been able to capture the values of Canadians in a meaningful way.
Well, thank you for that question. And since you mentioned your own history with NAFTA, Tracy knows what I'm about to say, which is my own personal history with NAFTA began when my mother unsuccessfully ran as the NDP candidate in Edmonton Strathcona. And I'm afraid the NDP back in the day was very anti-NAFTA, so I did knock on doors in Edmonton Strathcona talking about that issue. She lost, though. And I think that there is, I think it is worth it for us as Canadians to reflect on that history. Because in the subsequent nearly 25 years, I think our country has really we've moved from quite a polarized view around trade, including trade with the United States, to a really unified Team Canada approach. One of the things which is striking for me is the extent to which Canadians broadly understand both the value of trade in general for our country. It doesn't mean we don't have disagreements about specific trade agreements or views about what should or should not be in trade agreements, but I think we have a broad appreciation that Canada is a trading nation and that trade is absolutely essential for the prosperity of middle-class Canadians and of everyone who is working hard to join the middle class. And I think that is a very good thing. It's a strength for our country. When it comes to these specific negotiations, I think that there has been an appreciation from the very outset that this was an issue where Canadians were all on the same side, Canada's side, and where I think we all appreciated that the best outcome for our country would come from all working together. And I'm really pleased to say that we have been successfully doing that. I think part of the way that we've been doing that is because of the role that members of Parliament have been playing, including this committee. And I would also, if you guys don't mind my mentioning another committee, I think the Foreign Affairs Committee has been playing a really strong role as well, as has the Canada-US Interparliamentary Group. And the fact that we have had bipartisan groups of MPs talking to their U.S. partners has been extremely helpful. I think something that has also been really valuable is that all of us, I think all legislators, the government, certainly our public servants, have been spending a lot of time talking to Canadians about their concerns on these issues. And that broad consultative approach, I think, has helped both helped to strongly inform our negotiating positions. We come to the table knowing what the Canadians directly affected by a particular issue really need. And it has also, I think, helped to build a really strong, unified national approach. It has also, and Steve and I have been in many conversations where this has been the case, consulting with Canadians helps us to understand our counterparties in the U.S. and Mexico better. Because when we talk to the Canadians who are part of a trading relationship with the United States, they have clients, they have customers on the other side of the border.
Thank you, Minister. Good, thank you. And we're going to move over to Mr. Carey. You've got the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister. I think it's pretty obvious that we're all on Canada's side, but I got to tell you, as the Member of Parliament for Oshawa, we build cars, and I'm extremely concerned. Our factories are going to be significantly affected by the tariffs on steel and aluminum. We always get complaints that Canada is the highest cost jurisdiction to build cars, and it's really affecting our competitiveness. I know when the Americans first announced those tariffs, the Prime Minister was quick to go on a victory tour in Quebec, telling workers that, you know, we got your back. Unfortunately, we didn't get a great result there. We're being hit with these tariffs. We know that's not the case. But when Mr. Trump says something, he means it, and he's going to follow through. And now we're threatened with these auto tariffs, and as my colleague said, the TD Bank calculates it could affect 160,000 jobs, and that's huge. It makes me extremely nervous, and I'm worried about the plan, frankly. You mentioned that auto is a priority, but Minister, in your speech last year, you didn't really mention automotive as a automotive as a priority. There's nothing in the budget to talk about these tariffs in response. The government's running huge deficits. There's not a lot of fiscal room here. So my question for you is, you say we have to be prepared, but what is the status of the plan? What can you do to ensure auto workers that they're not going to lose their job? How far along are you with the plan to adapt to this eventuality of these auto tariffs?
Let me first of all say thank you for the question. Thank you for your hard work on behalf of your constituents. The auto sector is absolutely essential to our country, absolutely essential to this government, and it has been an absolute focus of our discussions with the U.S. about the Canada-U.S. economic relationship. As I think this committee is well aware, the rules of origin in the automotive sector have been at the heart of our NAFTA negotiation. We have spent a great deal of time at the table with our American and Mexican counterparts, and also consulting very closely with the car parts companies, with the car companies, and with unions. So we absolutely understand the centrality of the automotive sector to our economy, to our relationship with the U.S., and to NAFTA. We have been and continue to be extremely focused on it when it comes to the NAFTA negotiation. On the Section 232 investigation, let me be very clear. Canada knows, and our partners around the world know, our partners in Europe, our partners in Asia, our partners in Mexico, that this would be an unprecedented act by the United States, and we have been very clear in explaining that to our American counterparts.
Yeah,
it is important for us to be clear about that as a government, and I believe it's important for us to be clear about that as a country. It's important for us also to be in very close conversation with Canadian and U.S. business about what the impact
Minister,
of such an action would be.
I had a very short period of time, and frankly, my community, I was on the weekend talking to my neighbors. We're extremely worried about that. We know all that, and respectfully, I thank you for your work on that. But what we don't know is what is the plan. Today, we even asked for an emergency debate, and I know the Speaker made his decision, but I'm disappointed because a potential 160,000 job losses, for me, that is an emergency. And for my community, that's an emergency. For Ontario, that's an emergency. For our economy, that's an emergency. So what I'm asking you today is not things that we do know. What I'm asking you is how far along is the plan? We saw with these other tariffs, the Prime Minister went out early and said, you know, don't worry, be happy type of thing. Well, I'm worried. And I don't know what the plan is. And I don't know if you advised the Prime Minister to go out and do that tour. But I would like to know what is the plan,
Mr. Carey,
how far along
you only have 20 seconds, so maybe let the Minister answer your question.
Okay, with respect, let me say that the Prime Minister's response and my own on May 31st, when the Section 232 tariffs by the United States were announced, was firm, clear, and resolute, and it spoke to detailed preparation. Our preparations in support of the auto sector are equally detailed, and our support will be equally firm and clear, and that's a commitment.
Thank you, Minister. Well, we all want to be in QP at 2 o'clock, so we have roughly 10 minutes to go.
Speak for yourself.
So we have roughly 10 minutes to go, so I'm going to shave a minute off each party. So we're going to go 4, 4, and 2. So we got Mr. Fonseca for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister. I know you've got a robust plan. I thank your team for your leadership, their leadership. In terms of the approach that you've taken, you've always kept the door open. You've looked to find that common ground, to continue to talk on this NAFTA journey. I've heard from so many companies in my riding of Mississauga East Cooksville, which do a great deal of trade with the United States. And since the beginning, they've always said they've been fully engaged. They understand all the nuances. But here's what's really telling. One of my neighbors, and I won't say his political stripe, but one of my neighbors, I'll call him Fred for today. I'll call him Fred. And Fred has come up to me numerous times, came up to me on the weekend and said, I liked seeing the minister with Premier-elect Ford together talking about NAFTA as that, as that Team Canada approach. So, but one of the things Fred said to me is, you'd like to know is what's holding this back? Like, what are the barriers? And he's trying to find out about, so I know that the U.S. administration has talked about this 5-year sunset clause. And for us, we've said that's unacceptable. It's not a starter. Can you explain to Fred, and in layman terms, what that all means to us and why that would not be acceptable to Canada?
Thank you for the question, Peter, and I will try. I find that I'm able to get into very boring technical details quite quickly when it comes to NAFTA, but I'll try. So it is absolutely the case that, when we look at the U.S. negotiating positions on NAFTA, there's a set of issues that we've discussed earlier in response to Linda's question that we describe as the modernization agenda. And on those chapters, we're making good progress. We have closed 9 of those chapters, and I think those chapters are areas where we are really going to be able to bring NAFTA up to date to the 21st century and make a real difference to the Canadians who are part of the $2.5 billion of business we do with the United States every day. There's also a set of U.S. negotiating positions that when the officials write me notes about them, they describe as the unconventional U.S. positions. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce uses slightly stronger language and describes them as some of the poison pill proposals. One of these is the proposal for a sunset clause. And the idea would be that every 5 years, unless each country chose to opt back into NAFTA, that the treaty would cease to exist. Canada is strongly opposed to that for a number of reasons. First and foremost, we see the value in a trading agreement being it allows businesses and workers to build permanent relationships to plan for the long term. An agreement that expires every 5 years has much, much less value. We also make a practical point, which is, as Canadians know very well, NAFTA already has a 6-month notice clause that permits parties to exit. I will be celebrating my 20th wedding anniversary this summer, and so I use marriage analogies. And there's already one way for us to get divorced. We don't think that another one is necessary. Now, I do want to be clear that when it comes to this U.S. insistence upon a sunset clause, that is very much on the table. It has not been withdrawn by the United States, and it is a major sticking point for Canada.
Thank you.
I know we have support of Canadians in that position.
Thank you, Minister. And we're going to go to Conservatives. Mr. Holbach, you've got 4 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister. And again, Scrooge has only given me 4 minutes. I could use 25 minutes, but sorry, Chair, I didn't mean to call you Scrooge, but with the time you tend to be. I think it's, without a doubt, I want to say thanks to the ambassador, his team in Washington, and Steve and Tim for all your hard work on that. You know, actually, a trade committee, when we were down there 2 years ago, and then being down there a month ago, if you looked at the level of knowledge and the understanding, and I have to say I'm pretty proud of the fact that they will repeat back to us the numbers in their state that we gave them a year ago. So they get it. Unfortunately, they have no influence on the president, and that's without a doubt. So we know that that's still an issue and that's still a problem, and there's stuff that PMO has to do in regards to that. But I guess what I want to get back to is we need to have a plan moving forward. We can't assume that he's not going to do what he says he's going to do, because he's doing it. He threatened us on aluminum and steel, and he did it. He's threatening us on autos, and he did it. Now, you know you've put tariffs in place on aluminum and steel, and that tariff's going to have some $16 billion worth of value. So you're going to collect tariffs on that. You're going to collect some, 25%, let's say roughly $2 or $3 billion in tariffs on that. Is that money going to go directly to the companies that are going to be impacted by these tariffs? Because you've got companies that don't use aluminum and steel on that tariff list that will have impact. So what is your plan to help them? And what is your plan to help them become more competitive, so as these tariffs come in place, that they can actually help ride through that and keep those jobs, because we've maybe alleviated the tax burden, maybe alleviated, maybe give a faster capital gains exemption. So is there anything in the plan that you put in place to do that? Because I haven't seen it in the budget, so have you looked at that now, at least now?
I think that's a really good question. I do want to just start by addressing your initial comment, which
I only have 4 minutes. I know what you're going to say.
I'll be super quick, Randy, but I just want to say I have had the same experience of hearing from our American counterparties.
Okay, let's go to the meat and potatoes then, okay?
So that's, look, it is absolutely the case, as I said in response to Tracy and to Colin, that our steel and aluminum workers and industries need our support. And just as we have supported the forestry sector, we are working on a plan to support them. And I agree with you also,
but
Randy.
You've had a year to do that. Now, we got auto sector. We know this is coming up. Yes. So I assume you're being proactive and putting a plan in place. Is that
you are right in that assumption.
So what does that look like? How do I go back to those auto workers?
I'm not going to reveal the details today. Okay. But just as we are consulting carefully on the list, and what is actually on the list will have an impact, so we are consulting on what kind of support the industry and workers will need. And I also want to point out that the overall economic situation is relevant. And just as we saw a price response with softwood lumber tariffs, it's going to be important to look at what is the broader economic situation in response to these U.S. measures and in response to the responsive actions taken by Canada, the EU, and Mexico. But I want to be clear that the government is very seized of the issue. We believe our workers and industry need to be supported, and we will support them, and that also includes the car sector.
Okay, Mr. Hoek, one quick question and one quick answer would be good.
Actually, I'm just going to make a quick comment. You know, Chair, I think it's very important that the Trade Committee gets back to this as quickly as possible. So I would make a motion that we actually get together next week for 2 meetings, 4 hours at least, bring in witnesses that actually are going to be impacted by the tariffs that are going to be applied against them, so Canadian companies, Canadian businesses, so that we have a good understanding of what they're going to go through as these tariffs are applied. And then maybe they'll have some other ideas on other alternatives to actually stand up for them without it actually being a tariff. I know Andrew Coyne had a very good article this past week talking about other alternatives to tariffs in regards to making sure that we can still push back but not lose the jobs.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
But I actually would like to make a motion.
You need 48 hours for notice.
No, this is a Chair. Point of order, Chair.
Just one.
Point of order, Chair.
Go ahead.
I don't need 48 hours. This is actually the topic of discussion today, so it slides right in with that.
Madam Point.
Former Chair. Que le débat ajourne, s'il vous plaît.
Pardon?
Que le débat ajourne.
I move the adjournment of the debate.
Chair?
Can we vote on it?
So we need to vote on that motion. So all in favor of that motion? All in favor of that motion? All against? Okay. That settles that. And 2 o'clock, question period. Thank you, Minister. And sorry, time was chewed up with your time. But Minister, thank you for coming. This committee will continue to work with Americans, and